first speaker is Professor DK Bera, the President of United Indian Anthropology Forum and currently the Vice-Chancellor of Sambalpur University, a very distinguished anthropologist by his own right. I request Professor Behera to make his presentation. 10 minutes, please.
Thank you, Professor Mishra. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to the sixth panelist who themselves are stalwart, and all of them have spoken about the contemporary crisis in anthropology in India. But anthropologists are good observers, and I have been observing. So all the six panelists, including the moderator, we are all retired people. And actually, when we are talking about contemporary crisis in anthropology, the floor should be given to the research scholar, student, mid-phase career anthropologist, because they are actually at the receiving end. So we have already shared our views. And actually, this is time for introspection and time for, innovation. We have to innovate, and innovate, rightly said by Shalina. And I liked her point very much. Many of the points have been made at the macro level, but I would like to take you down to the micro level. Sometimes it is said, unpleasant truth should not be uttered, and pleasant truth should be spoken pleasantly. But what I am going to reveal, those may be unpleasant truth, but because we are analyzing crisis, I would like to bring up and touch upon those points. So I would like to touch 4 points because I think small is big and big is small. So first point would be teaching learning in anthropology in different departments. Second is that point has already been addressed, how there has been a dilution in fieldwork tradition in anthropology. Third one, how there is also a declining trend in research and publication in anthropology. Fourth, how there is an inadequate representation of anthropologists in policy-making body. And the fourth one, the way forward. So these are the 4, points I would like to touch upon, and the final thing would be the way forward. So first, teaching learning process in different departments. This year we are celebrating the 100 years of anthropology in India, but unfortunately, when we look at the grassroots, we see the absence of a database. We don't have a database of anthropology departments in the country. And forget about, the university department, even we don't have data about the college level teaching in anthropology, the faculty strength, and that is one area where the forum can play a very vital role. We must develop a database. If we want to overcome the crisis, then the solution is there, and the forum can provide the solution. My professor, Professor S.N. Natha, used to tell me that anthropology makes you a good human being. Anthropology helps you to handle situation, and it also helps you to deal with people, and it helps you to overcome crisis. So it is now the responsibility of an anthropology forum to overcome the crisis that has been contemporary. And many young generation anthropologists are facing that crisis. So the other point is like treating the subject, whether it is a science subject or social science subject. There has been a confusion, and people coming from social science background, they used to get a social science degrees, and candidate coming from science background, they would get a science degree. So there is a kind of identity crisis. So whether we should be placed in science discipline or social science discipline, so that has not been sorted out yet. And the output is dependent on the input. Many times we get student in anthropology from other department, and that is their last choice. When they don't get seat in other disciplines, they come and join. I may be excused with folded hand, but that is the ground reality, what I'm seeing. So that is when you are not getting good student, teachers are not the magician. They can't play miracle overnight. They can't transform them to a seasoned and a renowned anthropologist, because the input is not good. So that is what also we should try, how we can attract meritorious students to the discipline, because maybe of our wrong approach And we have been not successful to attract many meritorious students. And when the student join also, he doesn't find the classroom very interesting because, the teacher is not very innovative. He doesn't introduce new concept, new books, to the student, and the student feels demotivated. And that is the reason why many students also leave the subject maybe within 6 months. That I have been seen in my department, and they are not introduced to the original book. How many students, you tell me, even teachers, they read original book, classic book. That reading habit has gone, and that is no more there. So I think that is one of the problem, and we never teach them also. Rightly said by Shalina, that how many students or teachers know about Irabati Karve and her contribution to the discipline, whether it is NK Bose, Irabati Karve, LP Vidyarthi, MN Srinivas. They don't know where even these legendary conducted their field work. So that should be integral part of our course curriculum. And not only the subject matter, anthropological awareness. You ask today's student, do they know about the Anthropological Association in India? Do they know about the anthropological journal coming out from the country? They have no idea, They are very commercial in their approach. They just think about the examination. And the other problem which I notice, that the medium of instruction, because now the medium of instruction is the, mother tongue, the local regional language. So in the Hindi belt now, you don't get many good books in, reference book, textbook, written in Hindi, written in Odia, written in Telugu, Tamil, but you go over anywhere, So students are taught in regional language, and good textbook and reference books are not available. And that is why they find themselves at the receiving end, and they don't get exposed to the original books. See, I have taught in many overseas universities as a visiting professor, and their student seminar is given that is given a lot of importance. Student would be asked to deliver a lecture, and you have to prepare the student, and that is not happening in anthropology. So that is why, that is one way process. The teacher would come to the classroom and deliver the lecture. Student never get that kind of exposure. So in anthropology, what is very important, I think, we should train our student, to teach, and then probably he will develop. And see, Professor Ota said, and also Dr. Sinha said that, there are job prospects, but just getting the subject knowledge is not enough, Our students fail to compete with others, rightly said by Professor Ota, because they lack soft skill. And soft skills should be made integral part of the training. How do they communicate? How do they speak? And, how do they write? And how do are they computer savvy? Unless until you are computer savvy, you can't take advantage of many, digital platform. And now also there is something like digital anthropology. So our students should be given exposure to soft skill, and they should be trained also, we have Professor Bhagwan Roy, he imparts lot many training programs. So the forum should also try to impart training to the candidate, to the student, even teachers, and they should be trained in methodology, they should be trained in soft skill, so that they are employable. If they are not employable, they cannot fetch a job from the competitive market. It's very, very difficult to fetch a job from the competitive market. And sometimes, teachers, we should also blame ourselves. We never try to update our knowledge. We use the same old notes in our classroom. And that is why, the students fail to, concentrate, and they don't find the classroom situation interesting. And rightly said by Professor Gregory, it should be introduced at the, undergraduate level and even lower level, so that we get many students with anthropology background joining higher level of education. Second point, this dilution in fieldwork tradition. Already this point has been touched upon. So fieldwork is the hallmark of anthropology. And I am reminded of Margaret Mead, and she rightly said, we shall have no way to make an anthropologist except by sending him or her to the field. I repeat, we still have no way to make an anthropologist except by sending him or her into the field. So how often we take this quote seriously? So fieldwork is a method of investigation where the field worker has to go to the field and he or she has to get experience and he or she has to collect field data. That is not happening, in postgraduate department and in any departments in the country. Sometimes teachers feel it is too risky to take students because of the health related issues, security reason. Students are also not interested. They think that it is a kind of excursion. And before going to the field, they don't read also literature. They are not given right kind of an orientation. We hardly see ethnographic study. And also, the teachers, and sometimes, what is important, field notes and field diaries are not written. And you look at the life history of all the outstanding anthropologists, starting from L.H. Morgan, and he studied the Iroquois of Native American. Then reverse, he studied Todas, French Bois, the Eskimo in Baffin Islands of Canada. And you see Redcliffe Brown, Andaman, and Maurice Soplers, Oscar Lewis, David Mendelum, all of them did, village study in India, F.G. Bailey study in Bishop. Why they are famous? Why they are noted? Why they are stalwart? Because of their field work. They did original field work. Barbara Ball did a very good research in cons of Odisha and Verrier-Ullin, Bondas of Highlanders. Anyone, my friend, who is no more, Professor George Pepper, did a wonderful work among the Gadava. And his disciple, like Professor Roland Hedenberg, did wonderful research in Odisha among the Dangriya cons. Any stalwart in anthropology, is known because of his field work, whether it is S.C. Roy, like the Mundas of the Singhbhum, M.N. Srinivas, Crooks of South India. But that field work, is gradually, withering away, rightly said by Professor Mehta. And it is Bronislaw Malinowski who taught us how culture, society, and people are to be researched and research coherently. And he introduced the participant observation and all those methods. And look at the French Bois scholar, like Ruth Benedict, Margaret Mead, and Cora Du Bois, Margaret, and they all did wonderful field work during 20s and 30s. Same thing we also noticed with another, female anthropologist, Mary Douglas, who made a wonderful study among the Congo. So all they are known for their fieldwork, and this fieldwork tradition must be revived. We have to revisit fieldwork, and rightly said by Professor Ratha, we attracted, my Department of Anthropology, Sambalpur University attracted more than 100 overseas scholars just because for one thing, fieldwork tradition, and that is no more happening. So I think we have to revisit and revive the fieldwork tradition. The third point which I am trying to point out is declining trend in publication and also research. So number of original research, is declining, drastically declining. And the majority of not only the scholar, even the supervisor, and they lack the writing skill. I'm sorry if I'm very blunt. And because they don't read scientific journals. And if you ask them to name 8-10 journals, overseas journal, anthropology journal, and Indian journals, probably it is not only the scholar, even some of the supervisor would fail to utter those names. And that is why they find difficult to publish their article in peer-reviewed journal, impact factor journal. And even, what happened, it is not only social anthropology, because I am from that subdiscipline. In physical anthropology, biological anthropology, many departments do not have advanced laboratories. When you don't have advanced laboratories, you cannot come out with very important research findings to share with the international community. And, we make compromise. Many compromises have been made as far as data collection is concerned. And what we find, normally the repetition of study. So, I will do a piece of work which has already been done by an anthropologist elsewhere in India or elsewhere in a different part of the globe, and we don't find any new thing. That is why we have not been able to develop concept and theories, our indigenous concept and theories in India. That is one area where we are lacking and lacking severely, seriously, and that has been pointed out by Professor Joshi. And we failed to analyze, our field data. We failed to relate. I am reminded of my colleagues from Germany, Professor Pepper. He said that you Indians are very good field worker, but probably you fail to connect your, research, field data with theory and concept. That is one area we don't know how to do that. And we think that review of literature is like cut and paste. And it is not done scientifically. We don't know also how to write references in the right manner if we want to publish a journal in a very standard and reputed journal. And we never think about also interdisciplinary kind of thing. If you remain within the domain of anthropology, we can't be very innovative. So we must borrow idea from other disciplines. There is nothing wrong if we cross the boundary and try to enrich ourselves, getting good things from other disciplines. So that interdisciplinary things is also missing. The third point which I would like to touch upon, the representation of anthropology in policy making body. Probably this has already been touched upon by Dr. Rota, Professor Rota, and because that is why we have not received right kind of recognition. The cultural perspective on development is to be emphasized, and that can be done only when people are at the policy level. We should take culture as the infrastructure. Borrowing idea from Marx, I would like to put forth this idea. So, like the economic infrastructure, and upon which the superstructure is based upon, anthropology should take culture as the infrastructure upon which the superstructure is based upon, including the economy. And that cultural perspective on development, if that is realized, many times they don't understand what is cultural resource mapping, what is intangible culture, how cultural regulators are so important in maintaining a balance within the community. So this can be, this should be emphasized, and the policy, our student, scholar, should be there in the policy making body. Only when that is possible, then we can make our presence felt to the, people in the administration and people in the policy making, and that is why the forum can play a very vital role, and then forum can, act as a pressure group so that our anthropologists will find place in policy making body in different line departments of the government, and that is not happening. And what is, actually anthropology provides intellectual equipment enabling all the scholars to open their minds so that they can contemplate new concept, ideas, and facts. So this is the fourth point I covered, and the last one, that is the way forward. We must make a SWOT analysis. Previously it was SWOT, now it is SWOT. Strength, and then weakness, opportunity, challenges. Threat has been replaced with challenges now. So as a discipline, we should see what are we have already analyzed, our weakness and challenges, but that is a pessimistic way of looking at things. We should have a positive bent of mind. Okay, that weakness, analyzing the weakness will provide you some kind of strength, how you move about. The forum will provide a solution. So we have already discussed many points relating to crisis and how this crisis can be overcome. That we should first of all try to create a database, as I said, of different departments and organizations in the country, even going to the college level, organizational level, and university level. Database is a very, very important, and the forum should try to generate the database through the journal level committee. And this subject, rightly said by Professor Gregory, should be introduced at various levels. That is one solution. And let this forum act as a pressure group to introduce the subject at various levels by approaching different educational bodies And we must revisit our fieldwork tradition. We must revamp the fieldwork tradition. Otherwise, we cannot produce good anthropologists. I tell you, if anybody cannot be a good anthropologist without doing fieldworks. I proudly say I have done it 20 times in my life, and I have spent 6 months, many times, a long-term fieldwork. Fieldwork means at least you have to spend 1 year. I beg to differ from Professor Sinha that we have to innovate, but the basics should not be compromised. If we are talking about a fieldwork should be a long-term fieldwork, and there is nothing shortcut to fieldwork. And also, we should train them. Our our teachers should be trained in research methodologies. Our students should be trained in fieldwork, so that and we should innovate. Otherwise, that kind of training should also be provided by the forum. All solution is there with the forum, and we should also try to act as a pressure group to influence the policy making. Recently, that has been done once by the forum through Professor Joshi. We should keep on doing it. And I think anthropologists are the most skilled technocrats. I would like to put it, sum up my lecture. They are the most skilled technocrats who can readily assimilate all sorts of knowledge to enrich their own discipline. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Behera. Now there is a question to you personally and to others also. It's like this: we have sat here for a good more than 2 hours now. Initially, I thought that I should give 15 minutes for some kind of interaction or question answer. But if you like, then we'll continue. And after that, I'll sum up. Otherwise, we'll drop the question answer session and straight away go for summing up.
I think a few questions should be entertained, and there should be. I have a strong feeling, I'm rather provoked that we should listen to the youngster.
I agree.
Their idea of contemporary crisis in Indian anthropology, because we are all retired people.
I completely agree with you. Actually, we are not at fault, because our experience also, adds to the kind of questions that we are raising. All right, let me now invite 4 or 5 questions, preferably from younger scholars. Should not be a lecture, should be pointed question to a presenter or to a panelist, so that could be answered if he or she is around. Who is going to ask?
May I, sir?
Please go ahead.
Sir, namaskar to all of you. At the very outset, I would like to congratulate all the panelists for their excellent presentation. Each of them has a distinct presentation, but together they discussed the common issue, that is crisis in our subject, anthropology. And amidst all, I would like to make a humble submission that among many crises, one which the young research scholars and students are facing is publication of research articles. My humble submission to this forum is to bring out at least one, annual journal or biannual journal with a few senior professors and 1 or 2 young budding anthropologists contributing it, going through editorial board with good impact factor, which will definitely help the bright research scholars to have to contribute in the field of anthropology in a good way, in a proper way. Yeah.
All right. This will be discussed by the forum, and that will take enough working. That will leave it. This doesn't come under the scope of this panel discussion.
This is just a humble submission, sir, to bring out a journal.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any
other question, please?
Yeah, can I say, sir, Amitabh here?
Yes, please go ahead, Amitabh.
Good evening, all. It was enjoyable listening to the elders in anthropology. I should say that because I, being the student of Professor Mishra, my question is that because I moved from physics to anthropology, my question is why can't we have a single department of anthropology uniformly in all the institutions? Because we were seeing the various teachers were discussing that we have multiple nomenclature we are giving. So single institutions is one very important aspect which I would like to have it. Second is we need to become interdisciplinary outside, because I am working again like Professor Sinha. I am away from anthropology, though in an anthropology faculty, but at Indian Institute of Forest Management, the interdisciplinarity is very important and coming very strongly. So when I see the papers outside research, they are working in a team. And very rightly said by most of our speakers that the international agencies repute anthropologists a lot. But when I come and when I approach them, I see them. We need to revive them and then bring this interdisciplinarity within the anthropology discipline. So this is my two concerns, sir.
Thank you, Amitabh. Thank you.
May I?
Yes, please go ahead. Please go ahead. Sir, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Though, of course, Professor Behera said that he would want the young people to participate, and I thought that I am the youngest of the lot. So
Of course, I agree.
Okay. I came, just pushed myself for one simple reason, that I want to make a suggestion which I think is important. That suggestion is that so far the presentations which have been made are excellent, and there are a number of issues which have been identified, and which we should not allow it to just pass away. So I want to impose a task on moderator as well as to Professor Gregory, that identify the issues and then prioritize them and then have a discussion on those topics. So and then the last part of it would be the way forward, that we have identified this issue, we had a discussion, and this is what we want to way forward. And I think that's an important task, that this discussion which has happened in air should not go into the air, and therefore the task is that we identify the issues and then prioritize them, underline. Okay. The second thing which I would like to say rather once again very strongly, and this is I am reflecting what my gurus said, Professor N.K. Bose or Surjit Babu, that anthropology is in the state of mind. In case if you have not brought anthropology in your mind, then forget about it. You can never become, because the point which I am trying to make it, that you cannot remain a part-time anthropologist. So that realization should always be at the back of the anthropologist. Third, repeatedly almost all the speakers have said about the lack of fieldwork. I think this is once again a very important issue. I was in Anthropological Survey of India, and I know what's happening in Anthropological Survey of India, which was in fact a very big institution for the fieldwork and all that, where the tradition of fieldwork has come in. But having said this, and this is the last point which I am making, that it was easy for Margaret Mead and everybody else to go into the remote areas and do fieldwork. Where is the field now? And in fact, that point has been made very strongly, that the natives have started hitting back. In other words, that unless you change your attitude of fieldwork, Margaret Mead and everywhere, including rivers and all that, they did fieldwork and disappeared. And they themselves, though they consider anthropology is very important, did not do fieldwork in their own society. This is a very important point, because once if you go into the remote field and do the field work, at one time it was a hierarchical relationship between the field worker and the field they studied. Okay, but that kind of a relationship cannot be established, and anthropologists in particular should break it completely. And therefore it is important to have one session on the tradition of fieldwork in anthropology, which is in fact, and that is absolutely necessary. Thank you very much for giving me this much of space for talking to you. Thank you.
Sir,
I think
Hello.
Dr.
Good evening,
Gregory
sir.
has.
Hello.
Yeah, hold on for a minute,
Yeah,
please.
I'm Anjali Kurne here. Sir,
Wait a minute, madam. Gregory, I think you have noted down because Professor Mishra has already prioritized that one thing has to be done first and then subsequently. And then we will have a discussion about these things. Yes, Anjali madam, now you can go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, I would congratulate to all panelists. All the speakers' lectures were very thought-provoking. And this is not question. I just want to provide some information of Pune University department. Some years back, this is particularly to Shalina madam, that we have started teaching. Rather, we teach Indian anthropologists, and we have not only included Indian anthropologists in our course, but we have also included Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, Mahatma Phule, Savitribai Phule, Shahu Maharaj, and Rajaram Mohan Rai as an anthropologist and their contribution to Indian anthropology. And this course is very helpful, that along with the British anthropologists and American anthropologists, we thoroughly teach all the Indian anthropologists. So Pune University is doing it very enthusiastically, and it helps.
Excellent, congratulations.
I just want to convey that if other departments start teaching Indian anthropologists, particularly one course on Indian anthropologists. So we have Indian anthropology and Indian anthropologist.
All right.
Indian anthropology we teach for the first semester and Indian anthropology is for second semester, and both the courses we have taken it as in core courses and mandatory.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think we should wind up the question answer session.
Sir, very important issue, sir. Mishra, sir. This is NK from Delhi. Meeting some of you for 20, 30 years, 35 years also. I have one, two things. All of you have said great things.
I know you personally, Vaid Saab, लेकिन जल्दी बोलिए.
First thing is, जो दिखता है वो बिकता है. Sir talked about the media, but nobody talked about writing textbooks. Unless you write textbooks for the freshers, how can the subject be promoted? First thing. Right. Secondly, Professor K.C. Malhotra, Lalit Kumar and myself, we have started an anthropology course in a management school, and it's doing very well. And this session, maybe 3 or 4 schools will be there.
Good.
Third thing is there in UPSC, there was the content of development anthropology and international relations, but that was deleted. If that was there, things would have been very good. And last thing is that we always harp on that economics and politics, they are taking edge over us. We just have to do one thing. For economic anthropology, we have to change it to anthropology of economics. Political anthropology, we have to change to anthropology of politics. And we can have edge on both.
Yes.
Mishra ji, I have one suggestion.
Yes, please.
Because in our country now,
I can't see you. I can't see you.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Professor Mishra, in our country now, very good private universities are coming.
Yes.
So I think we can also impress them to start anthropology as a course in private university also. That is a very because they have a lot of financial potentialities there. Recently, Professor Kalam has joined as a professor of anthropology in SRMT University. Professor Kalam, Madras University professor.
Yes.
This is my suggestion.
Sir, thank you.
Answer to Professor, my guru, Professor P.K. Mishra. Sir, anthropology study the culture. Culture is changing very fast. So we have also changed our methodology because it's not only tribal studies in ethnography used for tribal study. Ethnography has been, I myself did 19 months field work in Varanasi, 18 months field work in a rural area, and one of my students joined a IT company to have a of IT company. Over, sir.
All right.
Professor Mishra, I think it is time for you to conclude and do the summing up.
Of course. Thank you so much. I think first of all, I must congratulate all the panelists for this wonderful presentation, for taking out time from their busy schedule and making themselves available for this panel discussion. I'm sure that this must have been very, very learning sort of experience for our younger scholars. Now, there were 7 panelists, and unfortunately, Professor Vinay Srivastav could not be present because of health problem. Let me begin with Professor Mutatkar. Very quickly, I'll sum up in 2-3 minutes. Professor Mutatkar's basic point was a lack of professionalism. I think we should ponder over this, that how anthropology also could become a professional subject like any other professional subject, so that it will have marketability. Of course, he talks about jobs and livelihood. He talks about practical utility. And then he has given many examples from his own research, so that anthropology could be sellable, could be marketable, and that will bring an honorable position for the subject. Joshi ji has raised some very, very good issues. He said that the colonial legacy still continues, and anthropology has been misused or abused, because many people say that it is a tribalogy. I think I have also experienced in my life that anybody who talks about anthropology mostly thinks that we are only doing tribal studies. I think this is the kind of abuse or misuse he talked about, and he thought that we only study marginalized communities. So there should be some kind of change in the attitude in our work, so that other people know. He talked about teaching also, and he said that there are not many departments, and there should be more anthropology departments in colleges also. And basically what he pointed out was that there should be a philosophy behind anthropology which should be taught from the school level onwards, so that that will have a bearing on the young minds or on the coming budding intellectuals of this country. Then the third presenter was very systematic presentation by Professor Gregory. He said that there are 7 problems in anthropology, and then also he said that there are 6 ways forward. But the basic thing that he pointed out was that the subject should be more reflexive in order to attract more and more scholars, in order to become more productive. He talks about the subject-society interface. Anthropology should have relevance or bearing on human society, otherwise it becomes redundant. Of course, he talked about an anthropology day that is left to the UIAF to consider, and also an oath by all anthropologists. I think it is very ambitious, but thank you, Dr. Gregory, for thinking something out of the box and then suggesting for this wider audience. The next was, of course, a very powerful speaker, Professor Madam Shalina Mehta, and she began with introspection. Of course, you are very true, madam, that unless there is an introspection, probably we can't move forward. Every time, at every step, there should be introspection. And I, as a teacher, understand that how we have refined our anthropological theory from evolutionism today to the postmodernism. It is only because of introspection. You also pointed out about interdisciplinary focus. It is very important. Dr. Arbind Sinha also speaks about it, and others also speak about it. I think this is very important, that anthropology should not be compartmentalized or should not be confined to its a small arena. It should be open for other disciplines to interact with us, and interdisciplinary is very important that you said. You talked about the contribution of Indian anthropologists should be a part of the curriculum. Completely, we agree with you that yes, we are not teaching much of Indian anthropology, about Indian anthropologists, although there have been many theoreticians, very good theoreticians, right from the beginning, and we have to include the contribution of Indian anthropologists in our curriculum. You talked about the journals, and there are not much of outside recognition of Indian anthropological journals. I think that is also one of the crises I also feel with you. Marketability, of course, you talked about, and along with others, you also pointed out that anthropology should be innovative, and at the same time, it has to be diversified. It could not be confined to its own cocoon. Otherwise, it will have a slow death now that it is facing, and it has to be diversified depending on the requirement of the time. The next speaker was Professor Ota, and then he shared his experience with us at the policy making level. Then he said that there is a decline of employment of anthropology students, although he has done his bit as an administrator, whatever he could do. He had recruited people, and I know also personally that he had recruited many young anthropologists to his organization and his sister concerns. One important thing Professor Ota has pointed out, that anthropology also should fit into the new education policy 2020 so that it will have more relevance. I'm happy that he is a member of one of the committees out of several committees to include and to implement the new education policy in the state of Odisha, and I'm sure that he will contribute his might for the entry of anthropology into various curricula at this state level. Then he had a 10 points way forward, and one of the things which I was really attracted was the internship. I think at Hyderabad University we had also tried something of that kind. Internship of master students during summer vacations, during other vacation times, or after the course is over, they can go to many NGOs and INGOs for internship that gives them a hands-on experience about what things they're supposed to do in future. He also talked about strengthening of the field work, also the methodology. Students now do not know the kinds of methods that we use. And another thing that is very important, he talked about the vernacular, press. The publications probably should come in vernacular so that local people know about this subject. He also emphasized on the interdisciplinarity of anthropology, otherwise anthropology is going to die. The next speaker was a very powerful speaker, Professor Arbind Sinha. He spoke for 5-6 minutes, but then he spoke on 3 issues. Number one, as culture is undergoing change, similarly, the subject which study culture also should undergo change. Then he talked about the method. We should also devise new kinds of methods depending on or the demand of the present time. But then he also emphasized that holism has to be maintained in anthropology. Probably his most powerful argument was that there should be, or rather suggestion was that there should be a very strong academic and industry linkage if the subject has to grow. Without a linkage between industry and academics, the subject probably will not move ahead. And as we have seen in many science subjects like biotechnology, bioinformatics, and so on, there is so much of industry and academic linkage. I think we should think very seriously about this kind of linkage with what Professor Ota said, the internship. And probably that should be a part of the curriculum, that every student during this summer vacation, instead of wasting their time, they should go for an internship. And we should create a kind of avenue by linking ourselves or by negotiating with the NGOs and INGOs so that our students can go for a meaningful internship for about a couple of months. The last speaker was, of course, Professor DK Bera. And then his concern about young scholars is very much appreciated. He talked on 4 different things: teaching and learning, then dilution of fieldwork, then research publications, which one of our students also, Itisri also has pointed out. And finally, he said the role of anthropology in policy making. These 4 issues are really interrelated, but because of these, anthropology is taking always a back seat. We should be proactive in promoting these 4 things: teaching and learning. That database also, very rightly pointed out, right now we don't have a database in how many colleges anthropology is being taught. Literally, we are struggling to get the number. So there should be a database of all anthropological institutions, teachers, student profiles, and so on and so forth. And then his suggestions for role of anthropology in policy making with a strong fieldwork background should not be taken with a pinch of salt. I think this is a very powerful suggestion that he has made. Dear panelists, you have contributed so much to this panel discussion, and that is the reason why it has become so productive. I'm very glad that I was given this opportunity of moderating this very important panel discussion. I thank the United Indian Anthropology Forum in general and to Professor DK Bera in particular for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Again, thank you so much. And by this, I am announcing the winding up of this panel discussion.
Sir, sorry, just a minute. Professor Gregory, may I request you to propose a vote of thanks as the secretary of the forum? Professor Gregory. Unmute, sir.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, on behalf of the forum, it is time to thank the panelists and our moderator, Professor DK Mishra. This particular topic, as Professor Behera pointed out, this is the third important seminar that the forum had been organizing, and I'm happy that we are able to tackle one of the important areas that the Indian anthropology is facing today, and the crisis that Indian anthropology is facing today. As we have already pointed out, this crisis is not something new, and every subject faces its own crisis. So also anthropology also is facing a crisis. But what is important is how we are able to respond to the challenges the crisis is giving to us. And I'm sure that we have made a stock of what the crisis is, and as Professor DK Mishra pointed out, we need to prioritize these issues and go deeper into this each and every aspect of the crisis, and chalk out and prepare a roadmap. And I'm sure the forum will take this task very seriously, and I'm thankful to Professor DK Mishra, who was very efficiently managed the entire program and summarized the entire deliberation. And each and every one of the panelists who have participated and given very important points, and we need to sit together and prepare an action plan. And I'm sure the zonal committees that we have in this forum will involve in a greater way and involve in preparing an action plan for anthropology for future. Thank you very much, one and all. And I'm once again happy to say that the forum will take this task seriously and go forward. Thank you very much.